I never thought the person who'd hurt me most in this life would be my own sister. I've known heartbreak, disappointment, and betrayal, but nothing prepares you for the kind that comes from someone who shares your blood, your memories, and your childhood laughter. Our story began in a small town in Oregon, in the house my parents built with their own hands. It wasn't much by anyone else's standards, but to us, it was everything. The house on Willow Creek Lane was where we grew up, where my mom taught us how to bake on Sunday mornings, where my dad built us a swing in the backyard, where the world always felt safe and simple. My sister, Hannah, and I couldn't have been more different. She was the loud one, full of energy, laughter, and plans. The kind of girl who could walk into a room and make everyone notice her. I was quieter, more careful. I liked books and late-night walks, things that didn't need an audience. But we loved each other. Or at least, I believed we did. When our parents passed, first mom from a stroke, then dad a few years later from cancer, that house became more than a home. It became a piece of them. Their voices still echoed in the walls, their touch lingered in the old wooden furniture. I couldn't bear to let it go. But Hannah, she saw it differently. She'd moved to Seattle years ago, chasing a job, a husband, a life she said was too big for small town living. She came home for the holidays less and less, until home was just a word she used out of politeness. I still lived there, the old family house, keeping it alive, fixing the leaky roof, mowing the lawn, paying the taxes. Every bill, every repair, every decision went through me, and I was happy to do it. It was my way of staying close to them. So, when Hannah called one morning out of nowhere, her voice full of warmth I hadn't heard in years, I almost cried. "Hey, Em," she said, using my nickname. "How are you holding up?" "I've been thinking about Mom and Dad lately." I smiled through the phone. "I think about them every day." She hesitated, then said, "Listen, I was wondering if you've ever thought about selling the house?" The air left my lungs. "Selling it? Yeah," she continued lightly, like it was nothing. "You've been there for, what, 15 years now. It's an old place, Em. You deserve something new, something easier to take care of. We could sell it, split the money, and you could finally move into a nice condo or something." I went quiet for a long time, the kind of quiet that hurts. "Hannah," I said finally, "that house isn't just a building. It's Mom and Dad. It's home." "I know," she said quickly, "but holding on to it won't bring them back. You've been doing everything alone. Wouldn't it be nice to start fresh?" I ended that call with a shaky voice and a heavy heart. For weeks, I couldn't stop thinking about it. The audacity of her even suggesting it. But I told myself she didn't mean harm. Maybe she just didn't understand. Then, a few months later, a letter arrived. It was from a real estate company. "We are pleased to inform you that the property at 214 Willow Creek Lane has been successfully sold." I remember the moment vividly, standing in the kitchen with my morning coffee, the cup trembling in my hands. The letter didn't make sense. The house couldn't be sold. I own half. I called Hannah, my voice breaking before I even said her name. "What did you do?" I asked. She didn't even sound surprised. "Em, listen, I was going to tell you. I handled the paperwork. It's already done. You'll get your half soon." "My half," I said, barely whispering. "You sold our parents' house behind my back." Her tone hardened. "You weren't doing anything with it. It's just sitting there falling apart. It's better this way. You'll thank me when you see the check." The line went dead after I screamed her name. That night, I packed what little strength I had and went to see the house one last time. It was already empty. The buyers had started moving things out. The walls echoed with nothing but my footsteps and the ghost of my parents' laughter. I walked into the kitchen where Mom used to hum while cooking, ran my hands across the old wooden counter Dad had built, and felt like my entire childhood had been ripped away from me by the one person who should have protected it too. I didn't cry. I couldn't. Instead, something colder settled in me, something steady, quiet, and deliberate. I moved into a small apartment on the edge of town. Life went on, slowly. People told me to move forward, but I couldn't. Every time I passed Willow Creek Lane, my chest tightened. The new owners painted the house blue, tore down Dad's swing, and replaced Mom's garden with gravel. It didn't even look like ours anymore. Hannah sent me a check in the mail. I never cashed it. Months passed, and I told myself to let it go. But grief can turn into something dangerous when it's mixed with betrayal. I started following Hannah's life quietly, not obsessively, but curiously. Her social media was a window into her world. Big dinners, shiny cars, a husband with a polished smile. Everything looked perfect, until one day it didn't. I saw a post. Her husband had left her. There were cryptic quotes, photos taken down, and suddenly, her once flawless life looked cracked. I shouldn't have cared, but part of me felt something dark stir. Not joy, but a shift. The universe was finally tipping the scale. A year later, I learned that Hannah had bought a new house in Seattle. It was her pride and joy, her fresh start. The same word she'd used when she sold ours. And that's when the thought hit me. Not out of rage, not even out of bitterness, but clarity. She took everything I built with love. Maybe it was time she learned what losing feels like. So I started my plan, quietly, patiently, the way I'd lived my whole life. I learned everything I could about her new home, who she bought it from, what neighborhood it was in, and how much she owed. I didn't want to destroy her. I just wanted her to feel it. The weight of losing something that mattered. Over the next year, I built myself back up. I worked extra shifts at the small local bookstore, saved every dollar, and reconnected with people I'd lost touch with. I didn't have much, but I had purpose again. And then a miracle. The kind that doesn't come from luck, but timing. The house next to Hannah's went up for sale. And not just that, her house was quietly listed too. She hadn't been able to keep up with the payments after her divorce. It was going into foreclosure. I remember staring at that listing for hours, my heart pounding. It was like fate was whispering now. I didn't act out of hate. I acted with calm precision. I reached out through a third party, keeping my name hidden. I knew exactly how much she needed, and I bought her house in secret. She didn't even know. Not yet. But when she did, it wouldn't be anger I'd feel. It would be peace. The day I signed the papers, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt still, like the universe had taken a deep breath and gone quiet for a moment. The real estate agent, a man named Marcus, smiled across the table. "Congratulations, Miss Emery. The property is officially yours." I nodded, my fingers trembling slightly as I accepted the keys. Not to just any house, but her house. The same sister who sold our childhood home for a fresh start. Now I owned hers. Marcus tilted his head, curious. "You don't seem excited." Most buyers are smiling ear to ear right now. I managed a small smile. "Let's just say this one's personal." He chuckled politely, not prying further. When I left the office, it was raining, the kind of cold Seattle rain that soaked you through and through no matter how fast you walked. But I didn't rush. I stood outside the car for a while, letting it wash over me, the keys heavy in my palm. I looked up at the gray sky and whispered, "This one's for you, Mom. For you, Dad." Hannah didn't know yet. Her house had been foreclosed quietly, handled through the bank and a management firm. I bought it through an LLC I created, Willow Creek Holdings. A poetic name, I thought. The house was still hers for now. Technically, she was renting it month to month while sorting out her finances. But the lease agreement would soon change hands. Mine. It wasn't about vengeance anymore. It was about balance. She had taken away something that couldn't be replaced. The smell of Mom's cinnamon rolls on Sunday mornings, Dad's laughter from the porch, the way the light fell through the curtains in the living room at 5 p.m. Those things were gone forever. But this was a chance for her to feel that same hollow ache. 2 weeks later, I visited the property for the first time as the new owner. I didn't announce myself. I parked a few houses down and watched from my car. The street was quiet, lined with tidy gardens and maple trees. Hannah's house, my house now, sat near the end of the block. A charming two-story with white shutters and ivy climbing up the porch railings. She'd always had good taste, I'll give her that. Through the window, I saw her. She looked tired, hair in a messy bun, dark circles under her eyes. Nothing like the confident woman from her old social media posts. She was talking on the phone, pacing, her free hand gesturing sharply. I rolled the window down slightly, just enough to hear snippets. I told him I just need more time. Yes, I'm getting back on my feet. No, I can't move again right now, her voice cracked. And for the briefest second, my chest tightened. I remembered her as the girl who used to sneak into my bed during thunderstorms, whispering, "Don't tell Mom I'm scared." But then I remembered the day I found that letter. The letter that said our parents' house was gone. And the ache hardened again. I started my car and drove off before she noticed me. A few days later, Marcus called. Everything's finalized. The current tenant will need to be informed of the new ownership. Do you want us to handle the notice, or do you prefer to do it yourself? I hesitated. I'll handle it. Understood. I'll send you the template. You just need to fill in your LLC details and effective date. That night, I sat at my small kitchen table, staring at the blank notice. Dear tenant, we regret to inform you that the property located at address has been transferred to new ownership under Willow Creek Holdings. The current lease agreement will expire effective 30 days from the date of this notice. Please vacate the premises accordingly. It was cold, legal, emotionless. I printed it, folded it carefully, and sealed it in an envelope. The next morning, I drove to Seattle again, parked down the street, waited until she left for work. Then, I slipped the letter through her mail slot and walked away. A week passed. No calls, no texts. Then one afternoon, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello. A shaky voice on the other end. M. I froze. How did you get this number? I asked quietly. I had to ask around, she said, her voice breaking. You're the owner of Willow Creek Holdings, aren't you? I closed my eyes. Yes. Why? Her voice trembled between disbelief and fury. Why would you do this? You knew what I've been going through. You knew. I didn't answer right away. I wanted to sound calm, not cruel. You sold our home behind my back, Hannah. The one Mom and Dad built. I begged you not to, but you didn't listen. That was different, she cried. We both owned that place. Exactly, I cut in sharply. We both did. But you took it from me anyway. Silence. Her breathing was uneven on the line. So this is revenge. No, I said softly. It's a lesson. You took everything I built, my memories, my home, my peace. I just wanted you to understand what losing something truly feels like. Her voice cracked. You're not teaching me a lesson, Em. You're just proving you're just as cruel as I was. And then she hung up. That night, I couldn't sleep. Her words echoed in my head. Just as cruel as I was I. I told myself this was justice, not revenge. But lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I realized something uncomfortable. Revenge doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. It dresses itself in reason and righteousness until you can't tell the difference. Still, the deed was done. A month later, Hannah moved out. I didn't see her that day, though I sat parked at the corner. She had a friend's truck, boxes stacked high in the back. She looked small, smaller than I remembered. As she drove away, I noticed something fall from her bag onto the sidewalk. When the truck disappeared around the corner, I walked over and picked it up. It was an old photo. The two of us, sitting on the front porch of our parents' house, eating popsicles. Mom had written on the back, "My girls, summer of '98. May you always stick together." For the first time in years, I cried. I moved into her house 2 weeks later. It didn't feel like victory, just quiet. Too quiet. Her perfume still lingered faintly in the hallway. The dent in the couch cushion where she used to sit was still there. I stood in the living room and whispered, "You got what you gave." But instead of satisfaction, I felt something heavier, guilt. For weeks, I kept expecting peace to arrive, like a prize for my patience. But it never came. I avoided mirrors because I didn't like what I saw in my own eyes anymore. One evening, as I was unpacking boxes, there was a knock at the door. I opened it and froze. Hannah stood there. Her hair was wet from the rain, her hands shaking, eyes red but determined. "Can I come in?" she asked quietly. I hesitated, then nodded. She looked around the living room, the place that used to be hers. "So this is what it feels like," she whispered. "Losing everything." I didn't respond. She looked at me, really looked at me. "You could have talked to me, Em. You could have made me understand." I crossed my arms. "Would you have listened?" She paused, then nodded. Maybe not then, but I would now. Silence filled the room. Two sisters, strangers now, standing in a house full of ghosts. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said finally. I thought I was helping. I was stupid and selfish and desperate. But selling that house, I regret it every single day. Her voice cracked again. Do you really hate me that much? Something inside me broke then. Not with anger, but exhaustion. I don't hate you, Hannah, I whispered. I just wanted you to feel what I felt. She took a step closer. Well, congratulations. I do. She turned to leave, but stopped at the door. You can keep the house, M. I don't want it anymore. But I hope one day you forgive me so you can stop living in that pain. And then she was gone. I stood there for a long time, her words echoing through the empty rooms. When I looked around, I realized something I hadn't before. Everywhere I turned, every piece of furniture, every photo, every shadow, this house didn't belong to her anymore. It didn't belong to me either. It belonged to the past. And maybe it was time to finally let go of it. Days turned into weeks, and I tried to settle into the new house. But no matter how many times I told myself, this is mine now, it never truly felt that way. Every time I walked through the halls, I could almost hear her, Hannah humming softly as she cooked, her footsteps down the hall, her laugh echoing faintly. It was maddening. I'd expected satisfaction. Instead, I felt haunted. Some nights I'd wake up from dreams where Mom and Dad were standing at the front door, shaking their heads silently, disappointed, not angry. I'd reach for them, but they'd fade before I could speak. The guilt wasn't loud. It was quiet, steady, like a clock ticking in the background that never stopped. One Sunday afternoon, I drove out to the edge of the city. There was a small cemetery near Willow Creek, the same one where our parents were buried. I hadn't visited in a long time, not since before the house was sold. I brought lilies, Mom's favorite. The grass was damp from the morning rain, the air cool and sharp. I stood between their headstones, staring at the names etched in marble, Harold and Lillian Emery. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Then it all came spilling out. I did what I thought was right, I whispered. She sold the home, Mom. The one you loved. The one you said should stay in the family. I tried to stop her, but she didn't listen. So I made her feel what it's like to lose something. My voice broke. But now that I've done it, I don't know if I'm any better. A soft wind rustled through the trees. I closed my eyes and imagined Mom's hand on my shoulder. That's when I realized something. I'd spent so long trying to punish Hannah for what she'd done that I'd stopped living my own life. Maybe it was time to end this. A week later, I decided to put the house up for sale. Not for profit, not for revenge, just to let it go. Marcus looked surprised when I called him. You just bought it, Miss Emery. I know, I said, but it doesn't belong to me. Not really. He didn't ask questions this time. As we finalized the listing paperwork, I saw Hannah's number pop up on my phone for the first time in months. I didn't answer, but I didn't block her either. That night, she sent a text. Hannah, I heard you're selling the house. Are you okay? Me, I'm fine. It's time to move on. Hannah, I was wrong, M. I see that now. But thank you for reminding me what family actually means. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back, me. Maybe we both needed to learn that. The house sold quickly to a young couple expecting their first child. I met them once during the walkthrough. They were bright, hopeful, full of plans and laughter. As I handed over the keys, I said softly, take good care of this home. It deserves better memories. They smiled, not understanding the weight behind my words. When they drove away, I stood in the empty driveway and exhaled. For the first time in years, the ache in my chest loosened. It didn't disappear, but it changed from something sharp to something quiet. After the sale, I moved into a small cottage near the coast. Nothing fancy, just peace. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since before Dad passed. I'd forgotten how it felt to create instead of destroy. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, my phone buzzed again. It was Hannah. She'd sent a photo. Her and me, younger, grinning, standing in front of our parents' old house with ice cream cones. Below it, she'd written, "No more houses between us. Just sisters." Tears filled my eyes. For the first time in forever, I smiled without bitterness. Months later, Hannah came to visit me at the cottage. I didn't know if it would be awkward, two sisters who'd torn each other apart and were trying to piece something back together. But when she arrived, she hugged me. Hard. "I missed you," she whispered. And somehow that was enough. We sat by the water, sharing coffee, laughing about old stories and talking about mom and dad, really talking. No anger, no blame, just memories. At one point, Hannah reached into her bag and pulled out a small box. "I found this when I was packing," she said. Inside was a key, old, a little rusted. "It's the spare key to mom and dad's house," she said softly. "I kept it all these years. I thought maybe one day we'd find another home to match what we lost." I stared at it, tears burning my eyes. "Maybe we already did," I whispered. She smiled. That night, as the waves lapped against the shore outside my window, I realized something profound. Revenge had never given me peace, but letting go did. Hannah and I would never get our parents' house back, but we'd rebuilt something far more valuable, the fragile, messy, beautiful thing called family. And this time, I promised myself I wouldn't let pride destroy it again. Years passed. Not fast, not slow, just in that quiet, steady way time moves when you're not looking for revenge anymore. The cottage by the coast became my home. The walls smelled like salt and morning air. Every evening, I'd sit on the porch with tea, watching the tide roll in, painting whatever colors the sky decided to wear that day. Hannah and I spoke every week, sometimes more. The conversations were simple, about groceries, neighbors, our aches and pains, her son's new job. But beneath it all, there was warmth again, a softness that had been missing for years. We didn't bring up the old house often, but when we did, it wasn't sharp anymore. It was more like remembering an old wound that finally healed. One cold morning, I got a letter, not an email, a real letter, thick cream envelope, no return address. The handwriting stopped me. I knew it before I even opened it. It was Mom's. At least that's what I thought for a second, before remembering that couldn't be true. My hand shook as I tore it open. Inside was a folded piece of stationery, the kind Mom used to keep in her kitchen drawer. And on top of it, a short note from the lawyer who'd handled her estate decades ago. "Ms. Emily Emery, we recently completed an archival review of your parents' records and found an unclaimed item in their deposit box. We are forwarding it to you as the designated next of kin." Beneath the note was a second, yellowed letter dated 1998. Mom's handwriting. For real, this time. I sat down at the kitchen table, the sound of the waves faint outside. I started to read. "My dear girls, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer there to mediate your fights or hold your hands when you're too proud to reach for each other. So let me say this as plainly as I can. The home we built was never made of brick or paint or furniture. It was made of you too. If the walls crumble or the roof leaks, build again. But don't let bitterness live where love should be. One day, one of you might lose sight of that. The other will have to be strong enough to forgive. Because forgiveness, my loves, is what keeps the family from turning into strangers. Love always, Mom." I don't know how long I sat there. My eyes blurred, and for a while, the words just danced in front of me. When Hannah arrived later that afternoon, because somehow she always knew when I needed her, I handed her the letter. She read it in silence, her shoulders trembling. When she finished, she looked at me through tears. "She was right," she whispered. "She always was." I nodded. "She'd be proud of us, you know, for finding our way back." We sat together for a long time, listening to the ocean. It felt like Mom was there with us, not in some mystical way, but in the way old love lingers like perfume on a sweater. A few months later, Hannah called with unexpected news. "I bought a house," she said, her voice bright. "Not big, but it's mine. You should come see it." I hesitated. The word house still held weight between us, but she laughed softly. "Don't worry, I didn't steal this one from anyone." When I finally visited, it wasn't what I expected. It was small, yes, but warm. Lived in. Cozy in that way homes only feel when love fills the gaps between old furniture and crooked walls. Hannah led me to the backyard, where she'd planted lilies, Mom's lilies. I wanted it to feel like her, she said. I smiled. It does. And in that moment, everything, all the years of silence, betrayal, anger, dissolved into something simple and human. We had lost our parents. We had lost our home. But somehow we had found each other again. That night, as I drove back to my cottage, I passed the old neighborhood one last time. The family home, the one Hannah had sold, the one I'd once bought out of spite, looked different now. The new owners had painted it blue, added a porch swing, wind chimes, and a little mailbox with a heart carved into it. A young girl stood in the yard, laughing as her dog chased a ball. Her parents waved from the porch. It hit me then, the house was alive again. Not a monument to our pain, but a vessel for someone else's joy. And that was okay. When I got home, I hung Mom's letter in a frame near the window. Beneath it, I placed the old house key Hannah had given me. Together, they were a reminder of what we'd lost, yes, but also of what we'd rebuilt. Sometimes, at sunset, I'd catch my reflection in the glass and see something I hadn't seen in years. Peace. Because in the end, the sweetest revenge wasn't the secret purchase or the guilt Hannah carried. It was showing her, showing myself, that love could survive even after pride burned everything down. It's been 12 years since that letter from Mom arrived. 12 years since Hannah and I found our way back to each other after decades of silence, pride, and pain. Life looks different now. The lines on my face are deeper. My hair has turned almost silver. Hannah's too, though she still swears by her caramel blonde touch-ups, as she calls them. We're not young anymore, but we're softer, kinder, and more importantly, at peace. Hannah's daughter, Grace, is grown now. She's 28, a teacher, and she reminds me so much of Mom that sometimes it makes my heart ache. She's gentle but sharp, a thinker, always noticing more than she says. A few months ago, Grace came to visit me at my cottage for the weekend. She arrived with that same bright smile Hannah used to wear before the world got complicated. We sat by the fire, sipping tea, listening to the ocean through the open window. She was quiet for a long time before she finally said, "Aunt Emily, can I ask you something about the old house?" I froze. I hadn't heard anyone refer to it like that in years. "What about it?" I asked carefully. She hesitated, then handed me a yellowed envelope. "My name is written in a young hand. I found this while helping Mom clean out her attic," she said. She told me everything, about how she sold it, about what happened between you two. I didn't know what to say. Grace continued softly. She said she never forgave herself completely. She said that losing the house wasn't the worst part. Losing you was. The tears came before I could stop them. "She doesn't need to carry that anymore," I whispered. "We made peace." "I know," Grace said with a small smile. "But I think she still worries you never really understood why she did it." I unfolded the letter, my hands trembling. Inside, written in Hannah's familiar slanted handwriting, were words that broke me all over again, but this time in a healing way. If you're reading this, it means I finally found the courage I never had when we were young to say the truth out loud. I didn't sell the house because I wanted money. I sold it because I couldn't bear to walk through those rooms anymore after Dad passed. Every creak, every photo, every smell, it was like living in a ghost. I thought if I started over somewhere new, I could finally breathe. But I see now. I should have asked you to breathe with me. You were always the stronger one. You carried me when I didn't deserve it. And when you bought my house, when I realized what you'd done, I thought you hated me. But looking back now, I see it was the only way you knew to make me understand what I'd taken from us. And you did. You made me understand. I love you, big sister. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to. Hannah, by the time I finished reading, my cheeks were wet. Grace quietly handed me a tissue and rested her hand on mine. "She wrote it the day before she came to see you at the cottage," Grace said softly. "But she couldn't bring herself to give it to you." I smiled through the tears. "That sounds like her. She wanted you to know that she forgave herself because you forgave her first," Grace added. She said that's what saved her. Outside, the waves crashed a little harder, the sound like applause from somewhere beyond. That night, After Grace went to bed, I sat by the window with Hannah's letter in my lap. The moonlight poured across the page, making the ink shimmer faintly. It was strange. All those years, I'd thought revenge was about balance, about evening the scales. But it wasn't. It was about understanding, finally, that love and pain often come from the same place. And forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without letting it ruin you. A few weeks later, Hannah and I went to visit our parents' graves again, just like we used to when we were kids. We brought lilies. Grace came too, holding both our arms as we walked up the hill. The air smelled like spring and old memories. When we reached the headstones, Hannah knelt, brushing away the leaves. "We're still here, Mom," she said softly. "Still learning." I placed the framed key and Mom's letter at the base of the grave. The same key we'd kept all these years. The same letter that saved us. Hannah looked at me, tears in her eyes. "You kept them?" "Always," I said. "They're reminders." She smiled, touching my hand. "Then let's leave them here where they belong." We stood there, arms linked, as the ocean wind rustled through the trees. And for the first time in my entire life, I didn't feel the pull of the past anymore. Just peace and love and the quiet, beautiful weight of forgiveness. Months later, Grace sent me a letter of her own, written on crisp white paper in neat handwriting. "Dear Aunt Emily, thank you for showing me what strength looks like, for teaching me that sometimes love isn't about holding on, it's about letting go. Mom always said she wanted to build a home that felt like family again. I think she did, and it started with you. Love, Grace." I framed that letter beside Mom's and Hannah's. 3 generations of women, bound by pain, love, and forgiveness, each learning in her own way how to let go without losing heart. Every morning, I still sit by that same window with my tea, watching the sunrise over the water. And every morning, I whisper the same quiet prayer. "Thank you for giving me another chance to make things right." Because in the end, life doesn't always give us closure. Sometimes it gives us something far better, understanding. And that, I think, is what home truly means.